question of which party controls the House or the Senate or both may turn 5 days from now on one, two, who knows, maybe half a dozen elections. So close that the final outcome will rest on compromised vote counts. In other words, in a number 3 story that may well become the story next Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. 6 years after Bush v. Gore, the elections process in America, 21st century America, is still a mess, a computerized mess. Diebold, the most notorious maker of voting machines, has been trying to get HBO to can its documentary Hacking Democracy, spotlighting flawed machines, conflicts of interest, lack of accountability, corporate secrecy, except when it counts. But you don't need HBO to tell you that somebody's got their thumb on the scale. Just spend 5 minutes on the Google. Maryland, 4,700 Diebold machines have a crucial part replaced so they won't freeze anymore. In September, problems with electronic voting machines forced some primary voters to go home before becoming voters. Both a Republican governor and his Democratic challenger are telling voters use the absentee paper ballots. Florida, well, the Miami Herald found machines in South Florida's early voting turning Democratic votes into Republican votes. Texas, same thing, found in Jefferson County. Ohio, after the May primaries, 24 machines had no data on them at all, and officials couldn't even find 29 more. Virginia, with a tight statewide race there, on some screens, voters won't see Democratic Senate hopeful James Webb's full name because it's too long. And California, officials have learned in recent days that the state's most widely used electronic voting machines can be manipulated to let voters cast ballots over and over and over again. What could possibly let you do that? It turns out you just press the yellow button on the back. The yellow, congratulations, you're high scorer, you've just won a second vote button. One of the most notorious Diebold demonstrations was the work of Edward Felton, a professor at Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs, and he joins us tonight. Thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure.
Based on your demonstration, how easy would it be for somebody with just a little tech savvy to hack a Diebold machine?
It's not too difficult at all. All it requires first is to write a computer virus, the same kind of thing that someone would do on a PC, and then it takes about 1 minute to put the virus into a voting machine. From there, it will spread to other voting machines and affect who knows how many votes.
In 2003, the Diebold chairman said he was committed to helping Ohio deliver its electoral votes to the president. He later resigned. He said that was not exactly what he meant. Now it turns out though, that Kenneth Blackwell, who's the Secretary of State who oversaw those elections, who's now running for governor of Ohio, was a Diebold stockholder. How worried should all of those facts make us, in addition to the physical facts that you have determined?
Well, I think it's not a good thing when you have partisan politicians, especially ones running for office, who are also running the election machinery. But I think the main story here is not so much possibly biased election officials as it is the reliability and security of the voting machines, which really leave a lot to be desired.
In addition to the things that we all worry about, have nightmares about, think we might have seen before in previous elections, what is now the capacity for things just getting screwed up? That one story about the 24 voting machines that had no results in them after the Ohio primary. How much of the risk here is just inadvertent or not even getting to the idea of how much of it might be stolen?
Well, certainly you're dealing with computers here. That's what these electronic voting machines are. And whenever you have a computer, you know what can go wrong. Data can get scrambled, it can get lost. These machines, as we've seen, you can even see the whole machine lost. So all the usual computer problems, unless you have some kind of paper backup.
There is constant attention paid to those sort of glitzy, famous not computer frauds, but voting frauds, dead voters and people voting repeatedly and ID challenges and the rest of this. USA Today reported that there has been a secret federal report that found there's little evidence of that kind of fraud. Are we looking at those smaller problems so we don't have to look at this bigger problem?
Well, I think we need to look at all the problems. It's important that we get the right people into the voting booth. But then once they get there, we need to make sure that their vote is actually recorded correctly. To have a fair and honest election, we need to get all this stuff right and get it right at the same time.
So, Professor, if the head of what amounted to the federal voting reform program quit in frustration because they wouldn't do any reform regarding e-voting, what's the solution Tuesday? Stay home?
No. The one sure way to make sure your vote is not counted is not to show up on Election Day. People have to go, they have to cast their vote, and then hope for the best. Our elections are mostly honest most of the time, and we hope that we can continue that on Tuesday as well.
How much actual reworking, how much actual money, how much actual time would it take to make a safe and reliable computerized voting system in this country?
Well, it would cost some money and take some time, but there are things we know we can do. And the main thing we can do is go to a voter-verified paper audit trail. What that means is that when you cast your vote, the voting machine prints out a piece of paper you can look at, and you can say, yes, this is how I wanted to vote. And then that paper is kept at the polling place as a record. So in case there's any dispute about what happened, you can go to the paper record, compare it to the electronic, and figure out what actually happened.
Professor Edward Felton of Princeton, who got into a Diebold voting machine in a minute. Great, thanks for spending a few minutes with us, sir.